Society. I'm so thrilled. Yeah. This is one of my favorite movies of the year, and I'm so thrilled to get to welcome some of the talented individuals who brought this to life. First, I want to introduce the film's co-writers and executive producers. They previously co-wrote the screenplays for all my favorite movies, including 500 Days of Summer and The Fault in Our Stars. Please welcome Michael H. Weber and Scott Neustadter. Also joining us is an Academy Award-nominated actor who stars in the film as Tommy Wiseau. He is also the film's director, producer, pretty sure he did the craft services, and for his performance in the film, no, I'm not done. He's won a Gotham Award. You won a Gotham Award, and you have been nominated for a Golden Globe, an Independent Spirit Award, a Critics' Choice Award, and a SAG Award. Please welcome James Franco. Get you that daytime Emmy, it would be complete.
Close. I did General Hospital.
How did that not happen?
Yeah, right?
I know.
And he played Franco. I mean, come on.
There's now another guy playing Franco.
How weird is that?
Very weird because my mom played my mom on the show, and they brought her back to play the new Franco's mom. Yeah, that's soap opera sort of.
So weird. That is almost as like meta as moments in this movie. Before we get started, I just want to congratulate Michael and Scott. Today you were nominated for a WGA Award.
Yeah.
And I guess I just want to start by asking, how did the Disaster Artist, how did you first become aware of this project? Because you were not necessarily a big fan of The Room, were you?
Yeah. Wow. I'm really feeling that holiday break now. I was in Hawaii for a week.
What? Which island?
Oahu.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see this movie. Oh yeah.
Not that
You were in
bad,
Canada.
Hawaii.
I know your answers to this question. You were in Canada.
I was in Canada. All I knew, anybody that's from LA from the early 2000s, 2003 to 2008, knew the billboard on Highland.
That's all we
staring down. That's all I knew. And I thought it was like a wanted poster or a cult or I don't know something because there was a phone number on it. It was really odd, and it would just sort of stay lodged on the periphery of your consciousness. And then I was in Vancouver. The book came out, The Disaster Artist, which was written by Greg Sestero and Tom Bissell. I read it almost as soon as it hit the New York Times book review. Somebody was like, "You should look at that. It looks like you'd like it." And I loved Hollywood Stories. I got it, and before I was halfway through, I just knew. I knew because I knew at least I wanted to tell it, and I hoped it would be good. But that it had all the ingredients I want. I want as a director. It was weird. It was unlike, and when I say weird, I like that because I hadn't seen it before. But on the other hand, it was also a very relatable story. It was underneath the story of everybody that comes to Hollywood to follow their dreams or follow their dreams in any profession. It was like that. It had that kind of heart to it. But the characters were so wacky. I'd never seen anything like it before. And I thought, ooh, if we do this right, this could be good. And I immediately gave it to Seth Rogen. I was working with Seth on the interview. Gave it to Seth Rogen.
Woo, the interview. Sorry.
Thank you.
Eminem comes out in the first 5 minutes of that movie. How do you top that?
It's hard to top that. Yeah. You had to kill a world leader, and that's how you top that. Anyway, and then you get a studio act. But I gave it to them to produce, and we quickly thought about writers for it. We had a list, and these guys were at the top of our list. We knew that it was a funny, unusual story, but that our approach wouldn't be to lean into the comedy, that our approach would be to lean into the characters and to lean into the heart. And we all thought these are the guys that tell, those relationship stories better than anyone. They were really hot at the time. Their movie had just like beat the Tom Cruise movie at the box office in the opening weekend, and
I love Tom Cruise.
but we were, oh, me too. But we didn't want him to write it. We wanted them to write it, and we were fortunate enough that they said yes.
I mean, yeah, you guys must have your choice of pretty much anything. What made you respond to this book?
No, I think it was the same thing. We love Hollywood stories too. We always wanted to work with these guys. We're not funny. So if they were coming to us to write a funny movie, that was a disaster. But we read it and we were like, this could be really cool. It actually is true. We really related to these guys, as weird as that sounds. I mean, we were kids from the East Coast, as far from Hollywood as you get, and this is all we ever wanted to do. And I feel like that was those guys. And yeah, we met with you and said, we can't write the funny version of it, but we can maybe sort of tell this great story that we talked about, Sunset Boulevard. We talked about Talented Mr. Ripley. We talked about Boogie Nights. We had all these kind of reference points, and you were like, that's exactly where we're coming from. And we were like, shit, this actually could work out.
Were any of you fans of The Room before reading the book?
No, and Weber actually has still never seen it.
No,
I've
seen it. But when we, neither of us had seen The Room when we started reading the book. And then Scott stopped about 3 chapters in to watch it alone. I remember you telling me, which is not the way to watch The Room. You need to see it with other people to guide you, because it's such an odd experience that you sort of can't believe what you're seeing. You need a group of people to sort of go through that. But we didn't tell James this, but by design, I waited until after we had written the first draft to watch The Room, because we wanted the movie to mostly be about the friendship and not inside baseball Hollywood stuff. That felt like more like the backdrop or even the obstacle for the friendship. And the book is so thorough that you really get a sense of The Room just from reading it. And I'd seen a couple of clips, but passionate Room fans are such a small subset of the movie-going public. So we wanted to write a movie that worked for everyone.
But very passionate movie.
Very passionate. Very, very passionate. And we're now among them. I love it now. But I think it was a wise choice that to hold off. Because otherwise there's probably a version of The Disaster Artist that's all winks and nods or all about production. And we never wanted to do... Or a spoof. And we never wanted to do that.
So I'm curious, after living with The Room and adapting this book, when you finally saw it, was it as bad as you expected, worse, or not as bad?
Oh no, it was as bad. It's really like.
Did you watch it alone? Or
I
Scott
had-
warned you, do not watch it.
I had a couple of friends over at my apartment, and it was still not enough people. Like it felt like
You needed an experienced room watcher.
we needed there just weren't enough hands to hold each other's hands.
Ayahuasca, shaman.
Yeah, and then I saw it I live in New York, so then I saw it at the Sunshine Landmark on Houston, because they do monthly midnight screenings, although the theater just closed. But I saw it there, surrounded by NYU students, which was definitely a better way to see it.
Oh yeah, that's how I saw it in Vancouver at a screening, and Greg Sestero was actually there promoting the book, and it was incredible.
Was your first time seeing it?
I watched it with some friends on a DVD, and then it was coincidentally playing like that Saturday, so we went. It was incredible.
I mean, the audience is part of the experience,
Yeah.
though.
Yeah.
I watched it on my laptop by myself in my bed, and my wife was reading a book next to me, and occasionally would look up and be like, "The fuck is that?" and then I'd be like, "I don't know, but it's like amazing." And then she would go back to her book, and then she would be like, "You're watching it again?" And I was like, "No, he just used the same sex scene again." I don't know.
Why are you rewatching that sex scene, guys? I'm right here.
Yeah, right.
Now,
Yeah, we were like, there's something here.
I knew this movie would be hilarious. There's no way it couldn't be with the subject matter in this cast, but I was genuinely surprised by how much dignity you gave Tommy and how touching the story really is. Was that something you discussed from the beginning, and how did you know you were striking that tone?
We didn't have to talk about it. We knew we wanted to do that.
Yeah, we
It's
don't-
definitely.
I don't know, it helps like we still most of the time feel like outsiders that I don't, something about this industry, oftentimes in certain circles, it feels like sport to punch down. And that was never our intention, or just who our personalities are. We don't, that isn't the kind of stories we're interested in, or the kind of people we surround ourselves with in a way that wouldn't be the spirit of how we, you know,
I
captured this.
Can't punch down.
But
You
like,
say you're not
honestly,
funny.
we can list 100 things wrong with the room, but those guys made something lasting that people still really care about. So it seemed ridiculous to us.
This is before we even met them. They're actually like incredible people. Just
They're
to
sweet.
get to know. We wrote it sort of independent from meeting them or talking to them. I think we had met maybe Greg a little bit because we were using so much of his material. But when we met Tommy, it was a little like, what's this going to be like?
Right.
He's
Yeah.
actually like an incredibly sweet dude who has the same values as
You're
everyone
saying
else.
that because he likes you, but he definitely doesn't like me.
Really?
So yeah,
You know,
the
these are back
DVD
when-
commentary was very odd, awkward.
He had some points to make.
Why doesn't he like you?
You Hollywood people.
He said, he called me, he said,
He does not know his name.
Doesn't know my name. By the way, I've met
After
Tommy
years.
200 times in the last year and a half. And he called me Mr. Nosy Hollywood guy who thinks he knows it all.
Wow.
And he got feisty with me at least twice during that. But it was so
Yeah,
funny,
I
before you
remember
got there, he walked in, he gives Scott like the biggest hug, and he's like, who's this guy? To me, it's like, we've met so many times, Tommy. He really doesn't like me. I don't know why.
He must love you.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. It was we did Howard Stern together. He kept saying.
You're no Johnny Depp.
He kept. Johnny Depp was his first choice, but we did Howard Stern, and we knew in a month in advance that we were going to do it together, and he said, after Howard Stern we go to walk in Central Park, right? I'm like, okay, and he kept asking me every week. So we still do that walk, Central Park, after Howard Stern? I'm like, what, am I going to get killed? And then like, what is going on? And so we went and took a walk. I don't know if anybody's going to be able to see it. Yeah, there's no projection or anything. Anyway.
Just pass the phone around. You'll get it back.
Yeah. Maybe you'll be able to hear it. We go there, and we're just walking, and it's just like, hey, James, come walk on top of benches. He's like probably in his 60s, but he's like a big kid.
No footballs.
No, we did not have football. But no, he loves me. He loves me. But what I was going to say about them too before is...
He always says your full name, too. He always says James Franco.
Really?
Here. Maybe you can...
Come on, James. What? Come on.
He's walking on the benches. I walk on myself, he's so square.
Here we are. Disaster
Hey,
Artist.
we're right here.
2017.
2017, he's the best actor. That's what I said.
Then I've got a video of him kicking leaves if you want to.
Can I just point out the back of your phone?
Yeah. This is actually the design on my surfboard that I took to Oahu.
No.
Yeah.
You surf
At the
with
Tommy
your
board,
face
yeah.
on a board?
That's not me, that's him.
Okay.
Yeah, not mine.
Looks a lot like you.
Yeah, sometimes. Anyway, no, I was gonna say though, what you guys did too, in a weird way, yes, the room itself is sort of important to our thing, but what you guys really wrote about is the passion of this guy. You know what I mean? The passion underneath. That's what I really liked, is that on the surface, he's bizarre and weird, and has had very little self-awareness, but underneath he had the same amount of passion as I did, you know, and as Coppola or anybody, you know what I mean? And in that way, it did give it so much dignity. And that's actually the story you're telling, is this emotional journey that every artist or creative person can relate to.
We're neurotic writer guys. Somebody says, I'm not sure about it. And we're like, you're right, it's horrible. Never mind. We'll erase the whole thing. And Wiseau is like, I must correct you. It's perfect,
Right.
it's wonderful, and everyone's gonna like it. And that's the way he kind of like barreled through.
Yeah.
And we're 15 years later, and we're still talking about his
Yep.
movie. It doesn't matter how we're talking about it; we're still talking about it. That's crazy cool.
Yeah, but also like, there's a couple things like directors that I love and really respect have talked to me about relating to, like Julian Schnabel called me when I was in Oahu. He's like, I saw your movie, it was really good. He's like, when you in that scene where you know, he's not giving him the water, and he's like, I can relate. You know, I'm out there. He just did a movie about Van Gogh with Willem Dafoe. He's like, I'm out there doing Van Gogh, and I'm yelling at everybody. Who's ever not in the shot? Get out of my eyesight! And what are these trucks here for? They're just here to go. And I'm sort of like, okay, whatever that means. But like the idea that when you can kind of lose it. There's something particular about. A lot of artists can go nuts, but like there's something particular about like a film director, maybe because there's so many people involved with the film, but that's a particular kind of nuts.
It isn't usually your own money.
What's that?
And it isn't usually your own money.
Yep.
Right.
It's usually someone else's money.
And you're
when it's
usually
your own
not
money,
making-
imagine
Right.
it like doubles down on it.
There's something, yeah, so interesting about that. But also the scene in the premiere where he's showing his work and then everybody's laughing.
Right.
That's like, you know, Michelle McLaren, who directed the pilot of The Deuce, was like, oh my God, that's my nightmare. Like, I was so uncomfortable at the beginning of that scene. You know, any artist's nightmare, I'm sure.
Yeah.
When you have a story like this that is truly stranger than fiction, and you're working on the script, are there things you have to take out because they happened, but no one would believe they happened?
No, we love those. Those are the best. It's when you have to explain it, or when something requires a little extra, like gymnastics that you'd shy away from. But the best material is the one that's like, no, this actually went down. Like we can justify it. If someone says to us in a studio note, I don't know about this, you're like, oh no, that happened.
Yeah.
And the craziest stuff in this movie is all the stuff that really went
Our
down.
problem was we had a wealth of material. Right? Like, we shot some other stuff that's not in there. There's some really great stuff that we just
Great
couldn't fit in. Bizarre stuff,
Yeah.
but really it
So much
wasn't.
true
Yeah.
craziness.
What's something that didn't fit in that you wish you could have included?
Tommy's like to get into SAG commercial.
Oh yeah,
That's a special
the
awesome.
first thing that we shot.
I also love June Diane Raphael, who plays Robin Paris.
Yeah.
Her audition scene, which had to be cut for other reasons because it was pipe connected to something else that we didn't need. But she's sort of an audition that happens in the middle of shooting the room.
Yeah.
And Dave as Greg brings her to an alleyway.
All true.
And the shot you did down the alleyway was great. And James, you just come out from behind a dumpster and you point at her and you're like,
This is in the book.
and you're like, are you ready to give your body, mind, and soul over to the movie? And
It was shot like Dracula coming out from behind the
it
dumpster.
really was. And then she's like, I think so. And you just turn around and you just walk down the alley to nowhere. And she says to Greg, I think Dave's like, how do you feel? And she's like I'm gonna be murdered.
That actually happened.
I do want to talk about the rest of the cast because they are amazing, even that Dave Franco guy.
Yeah.
And it must be nice to, yeah, well, he's not here, but go ahead.
Love Dave.
Can you tell me sort of how you rounded out this cast? I mean, did you know automatically a lot of the people you wanted to put into certain roles?
That's a good question. When I read the book, I knew I knew I wanted to direct it. I knew I wanted to play Tommy, and I knew I wanted Dave to play Greg. We had never really done a movie together, at least to this extent, and he had said no to me a few times. I did some weird movies he didn't want to be a part of. Or,
Previous movies.
yeah.
Oh, okay.
What do you mean?
I thought he said no to you on this movie.
No.
Okay.
No. I was afraid he would.
Yeah.
I actually asked my producing partner Vince to ask him because I was like, oh, I can't. If he says no to this, I really don't want him to say no. but he's like, no, you should ask him. So I asked him, and he watched The Room by himself and couldn't sleep for a few days, and then read the book and understood, like, because the book was so great about the relationship. And anyway, so he was in, and then Seth was producing, and what people won't know is how well Seth captured that guy, Sandy Sclair, the script supervisor. He nailed it. Because there's a lot of behind the scenes footage of The Room and footage of Sandy and Seth. So I knew, like, oh, Seth would be perfect for that. And then we were just lucky. There's so many Room fans. We shot in LA. There were so many people around, and so a lot of people like Paul Scheer and June Raphael, and even like Bob Odenkirk. You know, we're all like huge Room fans, and just wanted to be a part of it, and then we just, you know, like that the Cranston scene. Like,
You were making a movie with Cranston.
yeah, I was so. And he was such a great dude and such a supporter of, you know, independent film and whatever, and just interesting stories that he likes. And so he came on, and just everybody, Hannibal Buress, all, you know, Jason Mantzoukas, everyone just wanted to be a part of it.
Judd Apatow was fantastic.
Dude, that was so. It was the way that worked is sort of how everything worked. It was like everything just sort of fell into place so perfectly, because we didn't. We were actually looking at actors, you know, not producer directors, you know, to play that role. And just scheduling or whatever, it just wasn't working. The scene was coming up. We're like, who? And I was like, oh, maybe Judd. And I think partly because, or largely because, he has been so important in my career. I started with him on Freaks and Geeks. It was the first thing, quality that I ever did. And he was had been there at every major turn. When I did Pineapple Express, that was a huge turning point for me in my career as well. And so to have him in it was sort of really important to me, and it was sort of like, that was maybe my nightmare, is like, to be rejected by Judd Apatow. To have Judd Apatow tell you, like, you will never make it. Like, that would be my nightmare. So as soon as I said that, everyone was like, yes, yes. And he was, you know, he was great to come in.
That day on set, though, had a funny energy, because you could tell that you and Seth, it was such the shoes on the other foot, that it was sort of just the fact that you were directing him. And
yes, I think it was funny for everyone. But then, I almost didn't. Because Seth was directing a Super Bowl commercial that day. I was nervous. Like, I was like, I don't want to direct John. I don't know. I need Seth here. And I don't know, I was being a wimp for some reason. But anyway, he came, and then once we got into it, he was awesome. But then he was like using his real agent's name, and you were like, call my agent at UTA.
I'm so sorry we're out of time, and please, if you guys could stay seated, they have to be at another Q&A across the hall. But I am curious, Golden Globes are on Sunday. You're nominated, obviously. I can't imagine anyone but you winning, but will you take Tommy with you?
Tommy will be there. We made sure Tommy and Greg will both be there.
Wow. You know what you're in for.
With Tommy?
Yeah.
I have no idea. I think 16 years ago, he had a little bit of a fit on Golden Globes night, because he was stuck in all the traffic. He's like, oh, the people go big limo, whatever, I show them, I'll make a real movie. And now he's gonna be there.
That was the night you won for James Dean.
I think so.
You think it was absolutely the night you won for James Dean, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
You're so modest. Again, thank you so much for being a great audience. Please spread the word. The movie's in theaters now.
Thank you.